Hey everyone, it's Will, Gamer Dad, with another video for you. So in this video, of course, we're going to go over the last 3 weeks of farming results, and I hope you have all had great time farming your own units as well as treatises and chants. Now, you can see that the very first part of the video, I'm just showing that we finally made it to 75 Clark Shadow. Now, keep in mind, this was 3 weeks ago, and so since then, the Crystal region has now been released, and I am currently farming that if you've been following my channel and its live streams as well. At one point, though, when I was still in the Lightning version, once I got to 75, I actually decided to move back to Miglance Castle very hard to get more light for Aldo. And for those, of course, who don't know, Aldo was boosted and buffed quite recently in Japan, being that after you finish the Goddess of Time epilogue, you will have more powerful stats for a lot of the storyline characters. Now, on a fun and different note, as you watch through the video of the treatises that are dropped, make sure you watch for some trends and see if you can pick out the 2 most common treatises I got within the last 3 weeks. And it's actually quite amazing, and I will say that I've never had quite a streak like this. Hint, hint, they are not treatises that I'm looking for, unfortunately, but still, RNG is gonna RNG. Now, on another note, my thoughts about the game in the last 3 weeks has been, we've had chapter 8 now have come out. We've had the boss rush come out. We've been actually pretty busy, and I know for a number of weeks before this, there was little to no content other than banner summoning, and for many of us, of course, either saving up or either really stone poor, it hasn't been very exciting. So I'm really glad that now chapter 8 has officially concluded. For those who have finished that off, of course. The puzzle was interesting, and it gave us a little bit of challenge to actually use our brains and think through the puzzle. Make sure you get all those 6 flames lit, of course, and move on and get some chant scripts there. And another note about chants, as of chapter 8, with the storyline itself for Mythos giving us a couple of chants, as well as a few chant rewards from the boss rush, I do feel that the devs have given us a little more opportunity to have a few extra chance to upgrade some of our hard-earned characters. Now, keep in mind, as free-to-play, this is one of the only systems that we have that spares Chronostones in terms of either side-grading existing units if they come out with an AS form, for example, with Sukiya and myself, or in the future, for Tsubami and, for example, Mayufa. Otherwise, if you have to summon on every banner, and let's be honest, there are going to be tons and tons of awesome banners in the next few months, we're going to get broke real fast. Now, another note, as I said before, we are back in Miglance Castle hunting for our first chant of this particular video, and let's see what we get right here. 3, 2, 1. Oh, and we got caught off guard with a bunch of, beast soldiers. Of course, having Melissa really works very well in farming. You've seen it on my live streams, just auto hit 1 AoE, and we're done. And speaking of well done, there you go, another chant script to add to the collection. So, in this video, I did get a couple of them, and I will say that for those who are frustrated, because I've had a few of you express some frustrations with chant scripts. As you know, it is really just RNG, and there's really no magical way to get extras other than, like I said, the guaranteed ones, either through the episode rewards, or in the case of boss rush, or like I said, chapter 8. And for those who have been asking, there aren't any particular dungeons that drop them more often than not. Same with treatises. It's just, how lucky you feel, or maybe some dungeons are luckier than others. Now, speaking about lucky, the Cursed Seeker Treatise is one I'm still hunting, and as of this video that is going to be published, we do pick up a couple of Cursed Seeker Treatises here, which is very, very nice, mind you. And so I am at 4 UN AS treatises and looking for my 5th one. Now, if you're wondering why I haven't been buying that last treatise, I do have a fair number of Zerberiya gems. My point about that is twofold. First of all, if I've been able to beat all content in the game so far, and luckily for myself, I have been able to do that with the roster I already have, then I'm going to hold off on upgrading or side grading until absolutely necessary. There's going to be one exception for me. I am planning to buy 2 Minerva treatises once I get the 3 farmed. And the reason for that is it will really depend on how quickly those drop. For those who are wondering, I am planning to have ASMU by the time the Goddess of Time drops, and the reason for that is I feel that she is going to be extremely necessary for taking down some of those tough dual Hayashi or Hayako horrors. If you've caught some of the Japanese videos, they are essentially those present and antiquity Zerberiya horrors, but you fight 2 of them at a time, and they have HP stoppers, extremely high amounts of HP, tons and tons of damage, and they all have their signature moves from before, especially the Moth, for example, the Fire Raccoon, all of those really tough ones, Crabons. So, I feel that ASMU will help my Slash team, especially Fire Slash, take on a couple of those bosses. On another note, we are still farming, of course, in future Zerberiya for 2 reasons, of course. One, for Serene Light, and not that we really need a lot of Serene Light, it's just that that dungeon still has, in my opinion, one of the better rates for chat scripts, not to mention having the mix of dormant ores and, of course, pain and poison Grasta. Now, you won't get much elemental Grasta here, although, if you're very fortunate, I guess you can get a little. The future Zerberiya does have a lot of different things to go for, and I do find that that is the easiest. If you're talking about farming specifically for light or shadow, I do feel that Antiquity, being that Geryu, is much more useful in my opinion currently than Serene. He would be much better to farm shadow, but at this case, just with the other rewards in play, I feel that the future Zerberiya is still my go-to for green keys. Of course, you can leave some comments below if you feel differently. And again, for those who are relatively new to the game, some of you may not have access to the Zerberiya dungeons yet. I think they are exposed after the Goddess Time, which is chapter 56, and then 66, and finally 76 or so. And so each of them, each arc of that story will release or have access to those Zerberiya dungeons. Keep in mind that as of right now, they've made it a little bit easier to collect all the special items, which is either bones or junk, and you trade them in the I guess the stores in either Nagsham or in Zami, depending on which dungeon you're running. And eventually, you'll buy 50 full items, and then you'll be able to move on to future if you so choose. Alright, so back to running, of course, Miglance Castle. The whole goal is to eventually get 255 light for Aldo, both for, of course, as a light battery, and like I mentioned earlier, he got buffed in the Goddess of Time last story arc. So once we get there, some of his moves damages is scaled based on his amount of light, and so having the max light will ensure that you'll have max damage on those moves. In terms of the Mika Hayashi treatise, I believe this will help me get that true VC Grasta for, I think this is for AS Akane. So still working on that, and in terms of AS Felmina, still not planning to upgrade or side grade her anytime. I feel that the OG Felmina is much more powerful still, especially with Manifest. That being said, the Shining Shadow Trees course, AS Felmina still has a priority move, and there aren't that many units with priority moves, and so obviously if you need help with farming and you need someone to act first and deal enough damage, you can go ahead and do so. I think AS Annabelle has one. There's a few other. Hina, I believe, is one that has it, and of course future units will have those as well. They allow you to farm and do tons and tons of damage if you don't have the likes of, for example, Tiramisu, AS Radica for farming. I will say that once you get to a certain point in the game, as long as you have a decent amount of Grasta, which by the way nowadays can come fairly easy, especially those elemental ones, your AoEs, whether or not you use 1 or 2 XL AoEs from any of your 5-stars, should be able to clear most mobs, especially if you choose the correct weakness or at least vulnerability to it. Now, again, back to the Crystal Dungeon. I am farming those weapons, of course, to +10. As of this video, I do have 2 of the 3 weapons maxed, and I think the axe is the one I'm still working on, which will be done by the end of this week. After which, I am still planning to kind of split my red keys time between Miglance as well as the Crystal for Clark. I am prepping to get Clark's Shadow to at least 105 or higher, and just aiming for eventually when Chapter 10 rolls around that A.S. Clark will become available. Sorry, spoiler alert. And then he will be very powerful, and the extra shadow will really help his stats. Now, we can see that this is my first A.S. Dunarith treatise, the Sealed Ganan. And of course, being that I don't have any form of him, this one has absolutely no consequence at all for my account, although who knows if Dunarith will spook me in the future. Finally, as I had mentioned before, we are still working on Serene's Light, and so we are at 104, just about to make it to the 105 mark, which is MP plus 60. Now, her moves don't use the most MP, but a lot of Fist users don't have a lot of high max MP. And this is my first Minerva treatise. If you watched my live stream yesterday, actually, I will have caught my second Minerva treatise. And so just one more to go before I have the ability to buy 2 additional ones from the Emporium. I do recommend people not to buy treatises unless they absolutely need to, being that, you can save those up for emergencies for the most part. Otherwise, again, with all resources in the game, you can burn them down very, very quickly. And we have gotten to our Serene Light 105. So, I hope you guys have a decent amount of light on Serene. I'm curious to see where you're at in terms of your Serene Light as well, especially if you're at the end game where probably, like myself, finding Garrelia Future Dungeon is probably the easiest and most effective way to get a lot of the materials we want. The green keys do very well with 5 reward slots if you have 360 light, and of course you get more rewards, which is more chances of things like treatises, and nowadays the new ES Melina Codex. I wish I did have some form of Vena. Having this extra Titanium just reminds me of not having that second wind zone, and again, I realize that she's not absolutely necessary. No unit really is, but it can get a little bit hairy if you have to use, for example, AS Claude as a wind zone. You don't have that healing, which AS Vena provides. So he's a little bit more offensive. I've used him, and he's my only wind zone setter. Does quite well, but having the flexibility of having a second zone setter is obviously very useful in some of the tougher content in the game. And we're back to AS Nikkei with the Yasamaguchi treatise, and I hope she comes up with a manifest soon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.